The Crucible, a play written by Arthur Miller, is a tragic story based upon the true events that took place during the Salem witch trials of 1692. Now, in the story, we follow the events leading up to the death of John Proctor. The story covers many events and perspectives from people within the village of Salem. We also get to see many themes throughout the play, but I feel the most prevalent theme, or themes, would be reputation and integrity. Now, let me... Sorry I'm late. That guy was starting to get really annoying. Do you remember that guy he was talking about earlier? John Proctor? Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about that guy now. Now, let me go into a little bit of background information on John Proctor. John was a respected man, and some even feared him, as stated on page 20, when he's first introduced. On this page, we learn that John is somewhat of a sinner, and has a few things that weigh on his conscience. On page 21, we learn that Proctor has had an affair with another character, Abigail. And through pages 21 through 24, we get a little look into their relationship. John, at this current point of time, was only at Reverend Parris's house because the Reverend's other daughter, Betty, was supposedly bewitched. But get this, Abigail thought John was over there to get some action, if you know what I mean. Proctor tells her Abigail's only at Reverend Parris's house, only to see what all the commotion's about. John says this on page 23. I may think of you softly from time to time, but I will cut off my hand before I'll ever reach for you again. This quote proves that John is over Abigail and wants nothing to do with her. Let's fast forward to Act 2. In Act 2, we see John Proctor and his wife Elizabeth talking about family stuff. Later in the act, though, a lady named Mary Warren shows up to their house and tells them that she's an official of the court and tells them about court stuff. Now, John isn't too happy about this whole situation because Mary is actually supposed to be a hired helper at John's farm. John yells at her, and then Mary gives Elizabeth, John's wife, a poppet. It's like a little doll. After a little longer, Abigail, you remember her from a while back, Abigail accuses Elizabeth of witchcraft, saying that her spirit stabbed her with a needle, or something like that. We find on page 74, in the Proctor's house, Mr. Cheever, he's also a court official, finds the poppet with a needle inside of it, and he says this. You see it, sir? It is a needle. You may be thinking to yourself that, oh, this is just a dumb quote. It has nothing to do with the Proctors. Well, you're wrong. Still gonna talk about it. Back during the witch trials, the courts took something called spectral evidence in as real evidence. So essentially what that means is that any of the so-called bewitched girls could say something or do something, and it was taken in as evidence. Anyways, back to the Proctors. In Act 3, we find ourselves in the town courthouse, where people are tried for witchcraft. Proctor and Mary Warren are in the town courthouse, trying to prove the innocence of his wife and expose Abigail for falsely accusing people of witchcraft. Towards the middle of the act, John says something that I find really stuck with me throughout my reading of this play. He says, I have no love for Mr. Parris. It is no secret, but God I surely love. This quote has got to be one of my favorite in the play. The quote has stuff to do with Proctor's moral integrity and how he sees Parris from his own point of view. John doesn't care about what others think about his faith towards the church. John truly only cares about his own faith in God. And he wants the court to understand that true morality and beliefs are not about public appearance or church attendance. But Parris keeps pressing him and saying that he and Mary Warren are trying to overthrow the court. Now, to wrap up Act 3, there's a scene that happens, most famously known as the Yellowbird scene, where Abigail starts genuinely tweaking and says that Mary Warren is sending out her spirit, attacking all the accused girls. Keep in mind, this is all happening inside the courthouse. All the girls go rushing out of the courtroom in a frenzied panic, and Mary Warren is in the center of all of them. Mary is terrified and decides that her best way of getting out of the situation alive is to turn everyone's attention to John Proctor. She claims that he is the devil's man, and that is the one controlling her. So, the court officials take this spectral evidence, you remember that, and arrest John and his wife, sending them to jail. Act 4, the final act. This act takes place months after the trials, according to online sources, and shows John Proctor and his wife in the Salem jails having a little heart-to-heart conversation about their children and all the victims of the trials. After a little, John says that he'll admit to being in contact with the devil. He signs his name on a paper that states that he was with the devil. And the judges say that they're going to post the paper on the church so that everyone in the village knows that Proctor took part in witchcraft. John realized what would happen to him if everyone in the village thought he'd been in contact with the devil. So John and the judges argue, saying that they had to post it or he would be hanged for his crimes. John, at this point, is in tears because the judges don't understand the severity of what they're doing to him. Eventually, John says this on page 143. Because it is my name. Because I cannot have another in my life. Because I lie and sign myself to lies. Because I am not worth the dust on my feet of them that hang. How may I survive without my name? I have given you my soul, leave me my name. Now, this quote shows the true emotions that Mr. Proctor is feeling. He knows that signing the document is a lie, and that his name will be slandered. He knows that losing his name is the worst thing that could happen to him in this current situation, and no one will respect him as they once did. John is a very important figure in the village of Salem, and if he is publicly shamed, everything will fall apart. On page 144, John Proctor tears up the paper he had just signed. This act leads to him being hanged. His wife Elizabeth, on page 144, says, "He have his goodness now. God forbid I take it from him." This quote shows that even though John is sent off to be hanged, Elizabeth understands this was the better decision. John died with integrity. He died because he knew it was right.